Hello everybody, my name is Brady and we are back with another React video, and today we're going to be checking out more Geography Now. So we are almost done with the A's. Since we're doing this in alphabetical order, we've gone down the line and now we're at Argentina. I actually don't know if we're almost done with the A's. I haven't checked how many are left. I'd imagine there can't be that many more at this point, but I don't know. It's a big world. Maybe I'm overlooking a lot of places. Maybe A is just a packed category, and once we get through the really packed letters, we'll be running through letters a little bit faster. I really don't know. I haven't taken a look to get some reference here. You would think I would know all of these different countries and I'd have a good grasp of all the different countries in the world, but I, off the top of my head, overlook a lot of details. So today we're going to be doing Argentina. I'm excited about this one. So far, I think the one that I am most excited about going into it. Argentina, I think, in my experience, is, I guess, underemphasized based on its size and influence. I feel like I didn't learn enough about Argentina. There's so many interesting stories I've heard that kind of relate to Argentina, but Argentina itself, I feel like I never got as much as I would be happy to get on that. I'm not satisfied with my education on Argentina, so yeah, this one should be fun. I'm excited to get started, and if you guys wanted me to keep doing the Geography Now videos, keep letting me know. It's going to take forever to get through all these, but I will get to them. I will. Probably. Maybe. Maybe not. Who knows? We'll see. Let's get it started.
All right, our first South American country. This is the land of silver. Kind of. Not really. Welcome to Argentina.
It's time to learn geography.
The land of silver. Maybe it's possible we're talking about colonialism there. Maybe it's like a lot of mythology was created around the New World during colonialism, so maybe that's one of the things that maybe the South American continent was really known for a lot of its natural resources. Spain brought back tons of hard materials because they had a currency shortage during a period during colonialism, so extracting resources from the New World was huge, so maybe that's part of this.
Ow! We'll explain more about that silver stuff later, but first, you know the drill.
Cool.
Let's talk about the flag.
Yes. And you guys have told me that he has separated the flag part into their own series of videos, which is only going to make this take even longer to go to, but for the later ones, he has videos that he dedicates entirely to flags. And I like that level of detail, so I can't argue with it. I just know that I have so many of these ahead of me, and some of you want me, you actually think I'm going to get through all of them, and maybe I will, but my gosh, if they add more videos later on, who knows if I'm going to be able to.
The Argentinian flag has equally long, tall, white and blue stripes, and it's interesting because there technically isn't an official meaning to these colors. Many will say that it resembles the sky with blue and the white clouds. However, many historians will tell you that it's colored that way to represent loyalty towards the House of Bourbon. In the center is the Sun of May emblem. Historians accredit this emblem to representing the Incan design of the sun god Inti. Alright, that was fun. Now let's talk.
As a flag, and I like to give my thoughts on the flags as I go through them, I really like Argentina's flag. I like this particular blue. I feel like it's not used enough. And I'm very curious because I know that there's another flag that's very similar to this. And when we get around to it, I'm curious if there is any sort of crossover in significance, like behind the flags. With him saying that there isn't as much meaning to the color, that's one thing that actually really does surprise me.
Talk about Argentina's location and borders in...
Feels deliberate, the color choices.
Argentina is located on the bottom part of the South American continent, bordered by 5 other countries and the Atlantic to the east. It's divided into 23 separate provinces and the autonomous capital city of Buenos Aires. Argentina's borders are pretty simple, except for that one island called Isla Martin Garcia that lies in Uruguayan waters and is kind of shared by both countries. Otherwise, many of Argentina's borders are actually just natural land barriers, such as the Andes Mountains in the west by Chile, and in the Misiones province, the Rio Parana, Iguazu, and San Antonio rivers rivers, and the Uruguay River for Uruguay and Brazil. Which, by the way,
I find that in places where there are natural divides, there is less drama around border disputes. That may be an oversimplified assessment, and I'm sure there are plenty of exceptions to the rule. But when there isn't something physical creating that divide, you can push the line wherever you want. If there is something physical on the map, you can be like, okay, this is the exact thing. We're not just drawing a line. The line is already there, and it's mountains. It's easier to create a firm understanding between neighboring countries because, like, who wants to fight each other when you're fighting between mountains? Honestly, it's kind of a pain in the butt to have to fight in the mountains. They probably don't want to have to do that. Good job, bub.
It gives Argentina a very distinguishable panhandle, kind of like Afghanistan that we studied a few weeks ago. You can even
I remember that.
Due to the fact that the land is less cultivated and thanks to natural river borders, it has a more lush green appearance that sticks out in contrast to its neighbor nations. But then you get the arbitrary subtle borders over flat land and hills, kind of like the ones by Bolivia, sometimes marked boldly and sometimes virtually invisible. Where things get really complicated though is in the south, more specifically, the furthest south. Tierra del Fuego, or the Land of Fire, which is pretty ironic considering that it's actually one of the coldest places in all of Argentina, was named fires that Magellan saw the native tribes using on the land when he discovered the area in the 16th century. Anyway, it's...
Okay, that actually makes sense. I was about to say, that's stupid. And maybe it is stupid in a way, but at least it makes sense to somebody. Yeah, this is the part of Argentina that I'm kind of most interested in because it's very unique geographically. Being that far south on the globe, there are not many examples of places to look at. Besides, like, of course, the neighboring Chile, and we will get around to that. It's C. So I'm almost certain I'm going to get to letter C before I've dropped this series. So yeah, I'm going to have to remember some of the stuff from this and see if there's some crossover with Chile.
It's the smallest province in all of Argentina, and it's actually an island that they share with Chile. And they kind of have, like, who can claim the bottom of the world competition when it comes to this territory. On this island, Argentina has a population that far surpasses...
So it's kind of a rivalry. Okay.
19 times.
I didn't know if they were friends or not.
The world's southernmost city, Ushuaia, established in 1884. However, Chile didn't back down from the fight, and in the 1950s built a small little establishment just a few miles south across the Beagle Channel named Puerto Williams, or Cabo de Hornos, named after Cape Horn, and hence population over 3,000, and even their own little airport. Chile just barely beat Argentina in having the world's most southern town. But where things get even more complicated are these islands right here.
Oh, yes.
Argentine, they'll tell you that these islands are called the Islas Malvinas. They totally belong to Argentina. No questions about it. End of story.
They were talking about... one of those is the Falklands, right? On a map, it's so weird because, like, it's always a dot on a lot of the maps that I look at. When you have it zoomed in this much, it's a little bit of a different perspective.
So serious about it that they even named an entire stadium and an airport after the islands to reflect the sovereign claim that they have over the islands. If you ask a British person, they'll tell you that these islands are a collectivity of islands made up of the Falkland Islands in the west, South Georgia, and the South Sandwich Islands, not to be confused with the Sandwich Islands, which was the name originally given to the Hawaiian Islands. Argentina claims that after gaining independence from Spain in 1816, the islands were given to them from the Spanish Empire, and the British came in 1830 and forcibly pushed out the Argentines that had settled there and barred them from ever coming back. However, the British claimed that they were the ones that discovered the islands in the 17th century, even though technically the French were the first ones to actually colonize the islands. And either way, they have a permanent population of about 3,000 people that live on the islands that are British nationals that were born and raised on the islands. Eventually, tensions rose and they went to war over the islands in 1982. Long story.
And we talked about the Falklands recently in a couple of videos. We did the oversimplified one, which was probably the more popular example. It's really fascinating, and it's a great example of a legacy claim to land, which are kind of iffy, because we had a claim on this land at one point. We always have a claim on it. We are always entitled to that land. It's very, very iffy because if you take that sort of ideology to its logical conclusion, a lot of countries have claim on lands from other countries, so you can only take legacy claims so far. When it comes down to it, it really is who can reinforce that claim. And I don't like that as much either, because it's kind of a might makes right sort of thing, but sometimes that's just how it be. Sometimes I sympathize more with some legacy claims than others. It's really something I take on a case-by-case basis. I find it difficult to have a firm, principled take on that sort of issue, because there's just so many details that go into the specific groups that are involved that it is so hard to just draw a hard line in the sand on that issue.
Story short, the UK was able to fight off the Argentine troops and hold on to the islands, although Argentina still doesn't recognize the UK's sovereign claim. It's kind of funny.
Oh, still?
In 2009,
That's fine.
former UK Prime Minister Gordon Brown actually met up with Argentine President Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner, and when it came to the Falkland Island thing, they just kind of awkwardly said they wouldn't talk about it. Well, that was a little information.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about what the land actually...
Let's leave that alone.
Argentina is one of the most diverse countries in terms of landscape. In almost every corner, you see something that is completely different from the opposite corner that you were just at. In the north by Brazil and Paraguay, you can find rainforests and lush, humid tropic zones. In the interior and Midwest, you can find flat pampas and farmlands and hills. In the west by Chile, you find the mountains, with the highest point being Mount Aconcagua, which, by the way, is the highest mountain in all of South America. In the east,
Totally underrated mountain.
you find nice coastal beaches. A little bit further south, you can find ranches and mineral mines, and a little bit further south from that, you can find cold and chilly rocky deserts and cacti in the Patagonia region.
A lot of the great mountains that are talked about are like old world mountains, and I find that really interesting. I don't know what that is. Maybe people are just not as interested in mountain climbing in South America, though. I don't know what there's an incredible culture behind mountain climbing, and I know a guy who's really into that stuff, and I wish I could ask him questions about that right now. Because this is one that I'm sure there's a very interesting conversation to be had here. Any mountain enthusiasts in the comments, sound off. Let us know.
And petrified wood forests, such as the one in Ormachea. If you go even further south into the end of the Patagonia region, you can find glaciers and ice. This is the coldest part of
Pretty sick.
It's kind of interesting though, because
I like the diversity.
part of South America has what you would probably call a reverse double rain shadow effect, in which wind currents cause the moisture to stay in the north part of Argentina, making the north part of Chile a desert, and the complete opposite in the south, in which Argentina becomes a desert and Chile has a lush green interior. Kind of interesting.
Oh, that's really cool.
Story, Argentina was actually originally colonized because the settlers thought that the land would be rich in silver, hence where Argentina gets its name, the Latin word argentum, which means silver. However, in a weird turn of events, Argentina was actually rich in almost every single mineral except silver. Zinc, copper, and lead can be found in various mines all over. However, Argentina is especially rich in boron, making
Yeah, I believe the Spanish made a killing in silver in the New World, but I suppose that was just not in Argentina. Argentina must have just been the exception to the rule, but yeah, they got lots of great raw materials there. The fact that I love the irony that always comes in the naming of things in colonialism. That is a really funny little detail. You'll always find these little things where there's a little bit of irony behind these foundings.
Argentina, the third largest boron producer in the world after Turkey and the US. Hope I haven't boron you yet with okay, that was terrible. Here's the demographics.
Cool. That's what we care about. We love the people.
Argentina has a population of about 41 million people, or roughly the same
big.
as the country of Sudan. The Argentines have a saying, Los argentinos descienden de los barcos, or the Argentines are descended from the boats, meaning that Argentina is almost completely and entirely a country of immigrants. Argentina can actually disputably be considered as the whitest country in all of South America. It's kind of hard to see the specific percentages though, because many Argentine census reports don't really factor in race too often, but even the most conservative estimate of Argentina at somewhere around 85 to 95% European. Believe it or not, about half of the Argentinian population is Italian, or at least partial Italian in their descent. Floods of people from Italy immigrated in the 19th and 20th centuries to avoid economic turmoil in the mother country and saw Argentina as a way to rebuild their lives. Spanish, of course, plays into that mix as well, and about 17% of the people identify as French and about 8% German, with the remaining European groups coming from a slew of countries like Norway, Sweden, the Netherlands, and so on. In fact, interesting Interestingly enough, if you go to the Chubut province in the south, you can actually find a town of about 50,000 Welsh people called Uladfa Gymraeg. A good portion of these people are actually fluent in Welsh, making Argentina one of the few places in the world where you can actually find a genuine Welsh community with instituted facilities that speak Welsh as a main language.
Why is that hilarious to me? I have had kind of a running joke on the channel that I don't understand the Welsh. I don't understand what Wales is. I sometimes question whether or not it really exists. This mostly comes from GeoGuessr, and whenever I get dropped in the UK and I'm always looking for Northern Ireland or Scotland or England, but like I'm never thinking like, yeah, this is looking like Wales here, because I didn't really know what distinguishes Wales from any other place in the UK. Like, I didn't really get what stood out, so that became kind of the running joke on the channel. So just any mention of the Welsh kind of cracks me up a little. Maybe it's wrong to do that, but it is kind of what it is at this point.
Things get a little fuzzy though when it comes to the natives. Although people who identify as full-blooded Amerindian only make up about 2% of the population, about 9% of the population identify as mestizo, or mixed between Amerindian and European. However, a recent study by geneticist Daniel Korach has theorized that over half the entire population of Argentina probably has at least one ancestor that was Amerindian. Argentina actually used to have a surprisingly large black population, especially during the colonial days, and at one point,
that would make sense.
Colonization, blacks actually made up a third of the entire population. However, after independence,
that's a bad sign.
The population of blacks sharply declined due to a number of factors, such as epidemics, anti-African legislation in the early years, and many of them emigrated to more African-friendly nations like Paraguay and Brazil. Today, they make...
I was about to say, like, yeah, having such a high percentage and then it becoming such a low percentage, only terrible things could happen there. It doesn't seem like there was, like, any single catastrophic event, which is good, but yeah, I'd imagine the conditions were not particularly favorable. It's good that they had a place to go, the ones who were able to get out of there.
Make up less than 1% of the entire population. However, they have definitely left their mark on Argentine culture with contributions to art and music, and arguably the inception of the tango. When it comes to culture, Argentina has a very defined and nationalistic approach to how they operate and view in life. They like to keep things classy, but in their own Argentinian way, distinct from the European way. The last thing an Argentinian would want to hear you say is, "You are so Spanish." Argentina also has a huge wine culture, as they are the 5th largest producer of wine in the world. And they're very heavy on soccer, or football, and basketball with an...
I heard about them being big on basketball. I wasn't sure what that was about. There is an interesting relationship with New World countries and their former colonizers. And it varies all over the place. Some will be more friendly with their colonizers than others. Like Americans, we have kind of an anti-monarchical bend to us. We have sometimes an anti-British bend to us every once in a while, around the 4th of July maybe, but overall I don't think we have a particularly bad relationship with the British. I'm from New England though, so we have not firmly separated our identity from those British imperial roots. And then there's the Canadian relationship with the old world, which is, I think, even more complicated because they have kind of their own, like, British, French back and forth going on over there, which is very interesting. So it's always fun to see how people will separate themselves and relate to their former colonizers. It doesn't necessarily have to be a bad relationship just because you're separate now, but everybody does, in a way, want their own identity, and that's something that I find that is very consistent, even in places with decent relationships. Canadians want to be distinctly Canadian, whatever that means to them. Americans want to be distinctly American, whatever that happens to mean to them. And I guess it's the same with Argentinians, which is really cool.
Largest producer of wine in the world.
Very interesting.
And they're very heavy on soccer, or football, and basketball, with an impressive amount of players already having been drafted in the NBA, such as my favorite, Andres Nocioni. Speaking of international trade-offs, let's talk about Argentina's friends.
Oh, friends are always fun.
In order to understand how Argentina works diplomatically, you kind of have to understand its history. Since its independence, Argentina has gone through a lot of crazy times. To make things short, Argentina was part of the Spanish Empire as well as many of her neighbor nations. However, when an empire collapses, guess what happens? Internal conflict. In post-colonial independent times, Argentina has had wars and battles with every single one of her neighbor nations except for Uruguay. Today, Argentina gets along pretty well with her siblings, even though she adopted different trade policies from many of them. Now, when it comes to Spain, Argentina definitely does not have post-colonial Stockholm syndrome. Now, granted, Argentines do love Spanish people, they just don't like the Spanish government. However, when it comes to their best friends, Argentina might probably consider Uruguay and Italy their best friends.
I don't know when exactly Argentina broke off as opposed to like the other countries around them. I know that a lot of rebellion occurred during internal conflict within Spain. So kind of taking advantage of the internal conflict, or just realizing that the Spanish can't do as much for you right now, so we got to figure out how to manage ourselves. That sort of ideology. I don't know what the situation was with Argentina, but I know that was a situation with a lot of former Spanish colonies.
Uruguay has a very similar demographic and
that declared independence.
And they have been very close for as long as their country's conceptions. Some might even argue that Uruguay is kind of like the cute little sidekick of Argentina. And of course, Italy is definitely a huge player in the Argentina.
That's adorable.
Republic. Not only do over half of the people in Argentina identify with Italy ethnically, but many of the major and most important companies in Argentina are Italian-based, such as Techint, Iveco, Pirelli, and Telecom. In conclusion, Argentina might not exactly be the country that it was originally thought to be, but the spirit of the people with their fierce culture and passion definitely make them look golden. Stay tuned, Armenia is coming up.
Armenia, oh. That's going to be an interesting conversation, I'm sure. Yeah, who knows how many A's we have left. I guess I haven't been looking into it. I'm just going to find out as we go. I think if I know how much I have left, it's going to get too intimidating. So I'm just going to feel like every single time I'm going to be like, the next video, for all I know, it could be the last one, for all we know. Even though I know there's probably a country for every letter in the alphabet. Maybe, actually. I wonder if there's any letters that get skipped. I guess I'll find out. Thank you guys for watching. Shout out to Argentina, if any of you are in the comments. I know I have some Argentinians. The demographics say so. I don't look at my analytics too much anymore, but what I do like to look at is what countries you guys are coming from, and out of any country, I'm surprised to see as many Argentinians as I do, so that's interesting. So, shout outs to the Argentinians. Let me know. I had lots of questions and stuff during this video. If you guys have anything for me, I'm all ears. I'm down to listen and learn about your culture and stuff like that. So, thank you, and I will see you guys maybe tomorrow with another video. I've been taking more days off recently. Partly to get some rest, and partly because my allergies are bad and I don't feel like recording videos through my sniffles. So, I'm not going to say tomorrow, but pretty soon. All right, I'll see you pretty soon. All right, bye.